All right, what is good, ladies and gentlemen? It is the Master Reviewer back in with another review, and today we are doing a review for Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3, aka Stardust Crusaders. That is right, I managed to rewatch all of it. It is the longest Jojo part, consisting of 48 episodes, so yeah, I finished rewatching it, and the first time I watched all the Jojo parts, I did think that Stardust Crusaders was my favorite, and so far I do think that it is probably my favorite part out of the three that I've reviewed. This is the third review I'm doing, so far I think that this one is my favorite, just like I remember it being. So yeah, let us just get into it, starting off with the plot. By the way, just in general, you probably don't see it, but I don't think I'm going to be using my computer to like check the character names for. I'll still probably do it for like the movie rankings, but in general for like longer going shows I remember most of the character names. I'm just not going to bother because I think it's better for the recording when I'm looking at the camera more so. And also specifically for Jojo, a lot of the character names on Anime Planet, they're not correct for some reason, so it's like I'm just not going to bother. So anyway, let us just begin, starting off with the plot. So the plot of this part is that Dio, he returns. He was fished out of the ocean. He has the body of Jonathan Joestar, and because of that, he has a psychic connection to the Joestar bloodline, specifically Jotaro Kujo, who is the main character of this part. Joseph is also in this part, the protagonist from the second part. He is back, he is much older now, and you have Holly, aka Jotaro's mother. She also has like a psychic connection to Dio, and so this part introduces stands, which are basically, it's a replacement for Hamon. Hamon is no longer the main power system, but stands are, which is basically the physical manifestation of a person's soul. So certain characters have stands. There's like regular people that just don't have stands, and basically Jotaro, he has a stand, Joseph has a stand, and Holly also has a stand, but her stand is corrupting her, and so because of Dio basically had like Dio's existence, I guess, puts a curse on the Joestar bloodline, specifically because he's like overtaking Jonathan's body, and so because of that, Holly, she is cursed, and her stand is negatively affecting her, so she is going to die in 50 days. So the part is basically, you have Joseph and Jotaro, they, along with some other characters, some that are with them from the start, Abdul, and then they end up meeting Takyoin, Polnareff, and Iggy. They all go on this journey across the world from Japan all the way to Egypt. They have to make it to in order to defeat Dio. And along the way, basically, there is a lot of assassins that are after them. All of them have stands, and they go after the Stardust Crusaders. That's, I guess, the name of their group. And basically the part is they're traveling the world and fighting off stand users in order to eventually make it to Dio and defeat him. So yeah, it's split into like two different shows, kind of, where it's like, there's the first part, which is 24 episodes, and then there's the second half of it, which is another 24 episodes, and the first half is basically them making it all the way to Egypt, and then the second half is like them actually in Egypt, and then while they're in Egypt, getting to the specific place that they need to be in order to face Dio. And you might be wondering, like, why isn't it that they couldn't just take a plane? They did try to take a plane, but then they ended up, there was like stand users on the plane, and so they put innocent people's lives at risk, so they were like, okay, we can't take a plane anymore. But I was thinking, why not just like get the Speedwagon Foundation to bring them a private plane that Joseph could fly or something like that. They were saying like, oh, we can't put other people's lives at risks, but I'm thinking Joseph himself is capable of flying a plane on his own, and the only reason they kind of give for that is because Joseph has been in part of so many plane crashes that they just didn't want to risk it, I guess. So they do end up just going on this long world journey in order to make it to Egypt. So yeah, I would say the plot, I would give it probably I go like a 4 out of 5. Maybe even, I'm not going to say a 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5 is like, I loved it. I didn't love it, but I did like it a lot, I would say. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 to the plot. I think it is probably, out of all the plots so far, this one is my favorite so far, definitely, where it's like you actually have some stakes with Holly being directly impacted. So it's like, if they don't defeat Dio, Holly's going to end up dying. So I did like those stakes compared to, I guess, part 1, where there wasn't exactly, the stakes were just that like Dio was taking over, but there wasn't like any personal connection in part 1. And part 2 as well, there wasn't exactly personal ties to defeating the Pillarmen. It was basically just, we have to defeat the Pillarmen in order to be able to just save the world, basically. But this one, there's directly a personal connection involved, which I do think is good. And so yeah, I do like this plot, definitely. And I would say I like both halves of it about equal, when they're traveling to Egypt and then when they actually are in Egypt. I do like both halves of it, and I would say that probably more so I like the episodes where it's like there's unique stands, like specifically when the plots are like kind of unique, whether they are facing one of the Darby twins. I thought those episodes were good. The magnetism episode, I thought that was interesting. Like when the stands have like unique abilities, and less so when it's just kind of fighting stands, like the Anubis stand where they're just like fighting a guy with that has a sword that can like kind of go through things that's a bit less interesting because it's just a bit more like on the battle heavy side of things, where it's like I do like the more creative kind of stands I more so preferred. So yeah, anyway, the characters, I'll do a character ranking, probably not today, honestly, because I have to be somewhere I'm going to actually watch a movie with my friend, and so I'll probably end up doing a review for it on the channel after. Probably not today, but maybe tomorrow I'll do it. But yeah, so I'll do a character ranking probably tomorrow, but in short, yeah, the characters, I do like the Stardust Crusaders. I think they are good. I don't think that any of the characters reach like Joseph in his prime back in part 2, and so I do think that's the characters, though they're still good. You have like the main actual cast of Jojo, Polnareff. Honestly, Polnareff does feel like the main character at times because they focus on him so much. Like a lot of the issues of them fighting stands rises from like one of the characters kind of being separated from the others, and then they have to end up fighting a stand on their own. That's like the whole difficulty that really arises in this part. So yeah, I think that Jojo, he is a good protagonist. Joseph as well. I like Joseph in his prime. He's still good though, like kind of in an older, more different phase of his life where he's like much wiser, I would say. So yeah, I think they're good. Avdol, he is, honestly, he's good, but it's like he does disappear for large amounts of time. There's like the whole plot point where it's like you think he died at some point in the second half, not the second half, sorry. So at some point in the first half of the part, he ends up kind of, like, he dies, but then he faked his death, and so he kind of just disappears for a bit. Cocuine as well. Cocuine is good, but he does end up getting injured, and he has to leave for some time. But they're all good. Polnareff as well. Polnareff, I like him, but it's like they spend way too much time on him, I feel like, so I wish that other characters maybe just had a bit more time. Iggy is all right. Honestly, he doesn't have too much screen time from what I thought. On rewatch, I was surprised at how little actual screen time he had. I remember him doing a bit more. There was like one episode where he actually fights a stand user, which was Pet Shop the Eagle. So yeah, overall, I would say the Stardust Crusaders, I do like them. I do like their group. They're probably the best group so far, and you do spend the most, because of the nature of this part being the longest one so far, you do have a lot of time that you spend with these characters, which does lead to just you kind of growing more attached to them compared to, I would say, the characters from part 1, like Zeppeli or Caesar from part 2, like these characters that you're with for a while, but it's like 9 episodes or 16 episodes compared to, I think part 2 was 16 episodes, or part 2 might have been actually 17, I don't remember, but that compared to a whole 48 episodes of being with his characters, it's much more, you grow more attached to the characters, I feel like. In terms of the villains, again, I'll do this during the character ranking, but yeah, there's a lot of stand users, a lot of villains. Some are good, some are not as good. Again, I like the more creative kind of stands when there's like a different kind of situation that they're in. When the genie stand where that Polnareff faces, I thought that was pretty good. The stand with what was it? Death 13, where Cocuine, he has to like fight the stand user in his dreams and stuff. I thought that they were those kind of stands I like more so than just the more battle oriented stands, I will say. So the Lovers, that was a really good one. I remember that one. I like that a lot. Yeah, so the more unique kind of stands I like more so than just the ones where, again, the only one that's coming to mind at the moment is like Anubis. I guess another one would be maybe the Eagle stand Pet Shop. That was like a bit boring. It was just kind of like, I don't know, shooting ice, and that was it. I guess that was like more unique but only in the sense that it was because we were following Iggy instead of one of the actual Stardust. I mean, Iggy is a Stardust Crusader, but not one of the humans, I guess. So anyway, Dio is the villain. Dio is I honestly, he's good. Yeah, I do think that on rewatch he wasn't as good as I remembered him being. I do kind of like him. Yeah, I would say maybe he was a bit better in part 1, honestly, on rewatch, because he was good here, but there were moments where, especially like when he was on the losing end, where it's like he did feel there were definitely some moments where he could have, similar to part 1, where it's like he could have absolutely just at any point he could have killed Jonathan at several instances, and it's similar here where it's like Jojo, he also could have killed pretty easily and he just didn't. So but yeah, he's still a good villain. I would say I do like Dio, and yeah, besides that, I'll just get more into the characters more so when I do the character ranking. So overall, I would do the characters, I would give them probably I'll go a 7.5. I'll say that the characters are very good, I would say. In terms of the settings, there are a lot of good settings. You had in part 1, it was basically just all in one area in England, and in part 2, you did have a bit more of like they were starting to go to different places, where you had Mexico, you had New York, you had, what else was there? Somewhere in Europe, I don't remember exactly where it was. Italy, if I'm not mistaken. They went to Italy, and then they went to somewhere else, I think Rome or something like that, so that was cool. But then in this part, you have Japan, you have Hong Kong, they go to Singapore, they go to India, they end up in, and then the final area in Egypt. I do like the whole grand journey aspect of this part a lot, and so for the settings, I would go an 8 out of 10. I would say that it was great, and yeah, I really did like the settings. In terms of the art style, it still doesn't really, I don't know, the more realistic stuff. I am more excited to get into the more newer parts, like when you get to specifically, I would say part 5 and 6, and even 4 to an extent, where it does look a bit more, I guess, I don't know, modern. I don't know how to describe it really, but it looks a bit less realistic and a bit more, I guess, polished maybe in some of the newer parts. And so I am, I guess, in terms of the art style aspect, I am a bit excited. I'm looking forward to seeing how it looks in the newer parts. So yeah, for now, the art style, I'll just give it I'm just gonna go a 6.5. Honestly, I'm gonna say good. I think I'm just getting tired of this like kind of realistic, more so looking art style, especially this part where it's like very rugged and stuff with like the desert areas and stuff. I did mention, I think, in one of the previous reviews I did for either part 2 or part 1, where the art style does kind of tie into the settings. And even though I do like the settings a lot for this part, I do think that they're all, I don't think they lend well to, I guess, this specific art style, which is like, it's a realistic art style, I guess, but it is, and these settings are some of the more realistic ones, I would say. But yeah, I don't know, I think I'm just getting tired of this specific art style. Like, I saw it in part 1, I saw it in part 2, and now part 3, especially with it being 48 episodes long. It's like, I think maybe I'm just getting a bit tired of it, and I am just more so looking forward to the more polished version of this art style in the newer parts, I would say. So in terms of the action was, once again, it's like a mix of actual fight scenes that you have with the characters, as well as the battles that they face against the stands and like the different tactics that they have to use. So I have to, here I'm going to write tactics once again, because you are grouping in the tactics when you were talking about the action and the strategies that the characters use to come up to defeat their enemies, I would say. So I would say that this part, it was very good. I would say a 7.5, about probably the same amount that I would say that I gave for part 2, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's about, like, it's very different from part 2, where part 2 very heavily focused on Haman, and it definitely, this part feels a bit less random than part 2, where it's like, part 2 was just Joseph just pulling at the last millisecond that he was about to get killed. It's like he would just pull some BS out of nowhere that manages to help him defeat his enemies. And this part, it does feel a bit more like it logically makes sense, I guess, with like the solutions that they come up with to defeat their enemies. Even so, there's still like the incorrect timing, the incorrect spatial, the incorrect physics trope, all of that stuff is still there in this. But yeah, I would say to a smaller extent, it feels like maybe compared to the last part. But yeah, I'll say very good for the action/tactics. In terms of the worst thing is probably just like certain episodes. They were just not as interesting as others, I would say. Like, just with the nature of there being so many different stands and stuff, just not every episode is going to be as good. It's not going to be consistently good throughout the entire way through. So there are some episodes that were just not as good. But I don't think there was any episode that I really hated. So I'll go like a 4.5, I'll say, for any episodes or any parts that I just found like a bit not as interesting. And I'll also say they relied way too much on Polnareff. It felt like so many of the stands that they fought, it was just like Polnareff getting separated from the crew, and then him being the one to have to fight the stands. And so I do think that they put a bit too much emphasis on Polnareff, and he's a good character, definitely, but he is just, I wish that they would spend a bit. I think Polnareff, if anything, has more screen time than Jojo, to be honest. So yeah, I'm going to say a 4.5 for maybe the overusage of Polnareff, as well as, I would say, just certain episodes that weren't as good as some of the other ones, I would say. In terms of the best thing I'll either use the plots, which I give a 4 out of 5, or I'll use the settings, which I gave an 8 out of. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's going to come out to the same thing, because if I just double it, then the 4 out of 5 ends up coming out to an 8. So I'll just go like a 4 out of 5 / an 8 out of 10 for the settings. So for the sake of it, I'll just do an 8, because I'm anyway going to double it. So the plot and the settings, I'll say, were my favorite. I did like the plot. It was a very good plot. So far, this was my favorite plot out of all the parts. And the settings, I do like the settings a lot, the whole like journey that they go across the countries and stuff. So yeah, that is all of the scores. So I'm going to do the calculations. So King Crimson. All right, so it ends up coming out to about a 7 out of 10, which would be pretty good, but I think I'd give it higher than that, honestly. I think I would probably go with about I would say like probably a 7.5. I thought that this was a very good part, and yeah, I don't think I would go so far as to give it an 8 out of 10, but definitely I would say a 7.5, a strong 7.5. I think I gave, what do we have so far? Part 1, I gave a 6.5. Part 2, I gave like between a 7 to a 7.5, and this I would give a concrete 7.5. I would say this was a very good part, and yeah, from what I remember, this was my favorite part, so I don't know if I think the show might peak from this point, but hopefully on rewatch, maybe I will enjoy some of the newer parts a bit more than I guess I remember them. And yeah, that is, yeah, I guess I'm excited to rewatch them, I'll say that. So Yeah, but anyway, that is pretty much all there is to it. So if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, video game stories, anime, manga, web series, anything that you want me to review, leave it in the comments and I will maybe possibly check it out. With that said, that is pretty much all there is to it, so we'll leave it with that.